So I guess one of the essential things in Hitman is that not only is it a stealth game, which is sort of it's a genre, right? And I think where we really always strive to be at the very forefront is this whole feeling that stealth is not necessarily something you do while crouched behind a cover. Stealth is something you can do where you're absolutely hiding in plain sight in the middle of some place, and no one has any idea who you are. And typically also in our games, it's or at least in Hitman, it's you start in many cases in a level where you're allowed to be there. It's not like you're directly sort of in any trouble. You're about to cause some trouble, but mainly you can just go around and take in the scene. And then obviously the like layers in an onion, stuff around you is then hidden behind either trespassing zones or certain outfits you need to get in there.
Social stealth to me, it's this again. It's this going places where you can't normally go, right? So if I dress up as the bartender, it's okay that I'm behind the bar and kind of just observing and then kind of playing the role as the bartender. And then when it kind of clicks and leads to a kill, it's even better, right? But just the fact of being a security guard, walking behind the two guards, talking and kind of being part of the crew, and they have no idea that you're not one of those guys. I think it's one of these very awesome moments the game can do.
It's really, it is a core fantasy for us, right? So I know as a player that I'm totally not allowed to be here, but I made it so that nobody can see me, basically, right? Nobody will notice that I'm out of place.
And we actually spent quite a sort of amount of time trying to have every NPC, every person in the game actually try to reflect on who you are and what you're wearing and what you're doing, to enforce that feeling, because it is such an integral part of what makes Hitman really cool is feeling like, okay, if I'm a security guard, people will maybe address me with a little bit of authority. If I'm a waiter, maybe someone gives me a little bit of abuse because I'm too slow or bad at what I'm doing. I really love that. So that's the systemic, but I also, in Paris, I love the notion that you eavesdrop on a conversation, which is also a pretty cool thing. You're at a sort of this outside garden party and you're listening in and you figure out that Novikov is meeting this guy called Decker, who's a KGB station chief in France, and they have some sort of shady dealings going on. And then you figure out, okay, so Decker is waiting to meet Novikov and is waiting for one of Novikov's bodyguards to come and escort him to the place. And then becoming the bodyguard and having Decker go like, okay, are we going? And then escorting him to the pavilion is just, I think that's awesome. The fantasy there is great. And obviously 47 actually talks a little bit, so he will actually sort of assume the role of the bodyguard, which I also love.
It's very basic, right? You feel more clever than these guys, and it's a game and they're non-player characters, right? But it still gives you the satisfaction that you're totally fooling everyone, and everyone believes that you are who you are sort of pretending to be.
But then you have guys like Novikov's bodyguard, right?
Yes.
He's unfoolable.
Yes. That's
he's the clever guy.
That's where we sort of maintain the challenge, right? So
exactly.
And I guess that's a core loop right there, right? We put pressure on you, and you beat that by becoming someone else. And of course, then we have different avenues where you actually have to take the bodyguard out in order to become Novikov's bodyguard, almost, right?
Well, I also think that in contrast to where we were before, in Hitman, we sort of said, okay, so disguises need to be more powerful. They simply need to be more sort of center stage. They are a really, really good tool for 47 to use. And then obviously we had the conversations about, okay, so if everyone can't see through my disguise and we don't use the rules we do before, what do we actually do? And I love the new enforcer system where we say, okay, but it's not about everyone who's a security guard will know all the other security guards. It's actually just saying some people are more observant than others. And it could be within the profession, so you might have a senior security guard who actually, you don't fool him as easily. Or it could be someone who can actually look through a lot of different disguises. Like Novikov's bodyguard, he's a really, really well-trained bodyguard, so you really need to see him as a threat. But that's the individual, and I like that, because that sort of makes it, I wouldn't say personal, but it becomes, okay, this guy is trouble for me. It's not so much the outfit. And I loved how we decoupled those two systems.
Yeah. It also allows us to kind of create different challenges based on what disguise you're kind of going with, right? So the waiters, they maybe they have easy access to one of the areas, the dressing room, for instance, but where the stylist could be harder to be in the dressing room, but in the waiter area it would be the opposite, right?
Absolutely.
So different disguises would make access to different areas easier, not just by giving access, but just by having the enforcers there.
And that also ties into the player choices, right? So you get to determine what kind of challenge you would like to do.
Yeah.
Do you want to do pure stealth? Because there's a lot of enforcers around, or do you want to take chances and actually take out people, take another disguise, and that means that the enforcer gameplay becomes easier. That's a choice you have as a player, right? What kind of gameplay do you want to engage in?
And I also love this idea that it's about really scoping out who's a threat in a room. It feels like very integral to the fantasy. Yes. You're going in and so, okay, who would actually really notice that I'm not supposed to be here, or that I'm not really a waiter, and I don't really know how to mix that drink you're asking about, right? I love it because it's sort of it's not necessarily super cover based. It's more about saying, okay, I'm in a room with a lot of people, and if things go wrong right now, it's really bad for me because there are many people here who could actually harm me. But I'm only looking at that guy. He's going around. Okay, he's doing that. So you sort of paying attention to him. It feels like a good fantasy.
It's timing and positioning and context, right?
Yeah.
Which is something completely different than going from cover to cover, which is also fun, but it's totally different than social stuff, right?